Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're heading over to the Philippines.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Davao City. They're doing some really interesting things over there.
Awesome.
When it comes to disability rights and inclusion,
Right?
we found this fascinating document we're going to deep dive into. It's called Ordinance number 122.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically the blueprint for their Davao City Disability Affairs Council, or
Mm-hmm.
DAC, as they call it.
Catchy.
It is catchy.
You know, it's really inspiring to see a city like Davao putting these global ideas about disability rights
Yeah.
into action. You know, we hear a lot about the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, but this ordinance, it's really taking it to the next level.
It is. It's not just like a feel-good statement. It's
Yeah.
like they're actually,
There's a plan.
yeah, putting in the framework, the structures
Yeah.
to make this stuff happen.
They love that.
So we're going to look at how the council is set up, what it can actually do, how it connects to like district level councils,
Yeah.
all the way down to how people with disabilities in Davao City can form their own organizations.
So cool. It's like they're creating this whole network of support, like woven into the city itself.
It's a whole system.
It is a system.
Okay, well, let's get into it. Section 1 is pretty much just the title, but Section 4 is where things get real.
Okay.
This is where they create the DCDC.
All right.
And the way they've structured this council, I think, is really smart.
What's so smart about it?
It's not just like a bunch of people who, mean well.
Right.
It's really like thoughtfully put together with representation from all the key players.
Oh, I see.
So you've got folks from all the major city departments, like education, health, social welfare engineering, even IT.
Wow, that's comprehensive.
It is. It's like they're really thinking about disability inclusion in every aspect of the city.
Yeah, they're not treating it as like a separate issue. They're like, this is part of everything we do.
Total. And of course, you can't forget the most important voices at the table, right?
Of course.
The people with disabilities themselves.
Absolutely.
The DAC has representation from PWD groups, so they're making sure that lived experiences are shaping the council's work.
Yeah, because who knows better than the people who are actually living it every day?
Exactly. It's not just, for us without us.
Right.
It's with us.
Exactly.
So now who's actually leading this whole thing?
Good question.
Well, the city mayor, or their representative, chairs the council.
Okay.
And the head of the City Social Welfare and Development Office is the co-chair.
Oh, that's good. So it's coming right from the top.
Yeah.
The mayor's office is involved.
It shows that they're serious about this.
It does.
And then to keep everything running smoothly, they have a dedicated secretariat from the Persons with Disabilities Affairs Center, which I think they usually call the PDAO, DC.
A mouthful?
It is a mouthful.
But that's so important, having that dedicated support staff with expertise.
Yeah.
It means they can actually get things done.
Right.
They're not starting from scratch.
They hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And they're not messing around with meeting once a year or something.
Oh, really?
The council meets at least every 3 months,
Wow.
or even more often if they need to.
That's impressive.
And the members, they serve for 3-year terms,
Oh,
where
wow.
they can actually dig into the work,
That's good. It gives them time to see things through.
Yeah, it does. All right, so we've got a strong foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is this council actually supposed to do?
Right.
Well, Section 5 lays out their functions.
Okay.
And it's a big list.
Hit me with it.
So they're formulating policies, they're conducting consultations, they're proposing research, they're monitoring data.
Whoa, they're busy.
They're not just offering advice,
Right.
they're actually shaping policy.
I like it proactive,
Yeah,
not just reactive.
Exactly.
Mm.
And one of the things that really jumped out at me is they're tasked with creating a citywide database on disability,
Oh, wow.
which I think is a fantastic idea.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, that kind of information is so valuable
Is-
for understanding the needs of the community.
Right.
Planning programs, allocating resources effectively.
Absolutely.
And they're not just working in isolation.
Yeah.
The ordinance also says that the BZ,
Yeah.
has to network and collaborate with both local and international organizations
I love that.
working on disability issues.
It's a global issue.
It is.
So they're tapping into that global network.
Yeah, they're not reinventing the wheel. They're sharing knowledge and best practices.
Exactly. Learning from each other.
Okay, so we've got the DCDC up and running at the city level.
All right.
But how does this translate to the everyday lives of people with disabilities
Yeah.
in different neighborhoods?
Good question.
That's where Section 6 comes in.
Okay, tell me more.
This is where we see that multi-layered approach really taking shape.
Okay.
Section 6 establishes District Disability Affairs Councils, or DDACs.
Catchy.
I know, right? In each of Davao City's administrative districts.
Oh, cool. So they're bringing it down to the local level.
They are.
Love it.
Each district has its own DDAC,
Okay.
made up of 7 members from that district.
Okay.
It's like a mini DC DAC working at the grassroots level.
That's brilliant because each district probably has its own unique challenges
Right.
and opportunities.
Exactly.
So they can really focus on what's needed in their area.
Totally. And to make sure everyone's on the same page,
Yeah.
the DDACs follow the rules and regulations set by the PDA, PDO, DC.
So there's consistency across the city,
Exactly.
but still flexibility to adapt to local needs.
Yeah, it's like a shared playbook,
I like that analogy.
but they can make it their own.
Makes sense.
Plus, these DDACs have another important job.
Oh, what's that?
They keep records of all the PWD organization members in their district.
Oh, wow. So they really have their finger on the pulse of the community.
They do. It's all about data. Data.
Yeah.
So they know where the needs are greatest and they can respond effectively.
Love it. Okay, so we've got our DDACs in place,
Yeah.
ready to be those local champions for inclusion,
Yep.
working with the main DC DAC and the PDAO DC.
Yeah, it's like a beautiful little system.
It is, but what does that work actually look like day to day?
Yeah, that's the next question.
How are they putting these plans into action?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about next time.
Can't wait.
Stay tuned. All right, so we're back, and we're still digging into this amazing ordinance from Davao City.
Yeah, it's really impressive.
It is. So we've seen how the DC DAC and those DDACs are structured, right? Like that's the framework.
Yeah, the foundation.
But what about those PWD organizations we talked about?
Oh, yeah, the ones that actually give people with disabilities a voice.
Exactly.
to what they
Exactly. Well, Section 7, this is where it gets really cool.
Okay.
This section goes beyond just mentioning those organizations.
All right.
It actually lays out exactly what those DDACs are going to be doing to support and empower those organizations.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Okay, so first things first, the DDACs, they're responsible for helping implement all those policies and programs coming from the DC DDAC.
Okay, so they're like the bridge between the city level planning and the actual work happening in the neighborhoods.
It's like a relay race.
Yeah.
The DC DDAC comes up with a plan, and then the DDACs, they take the baton and they run with it,
I love that.
making sure those plans actually reach the people
Right.
they're meant to help.
It makes so much sense.
It does. And they're not just blindly following orders either.
Oh, really?
The DDACs are also responsible for like evaluating those programs.
Okay.
How are they working? Are they effective?
Yeah.
They gather feedback from the community. They identify any roadblocks, any areas where things could be improved.
So they're like the eyes and ears on the ground,
They are.
making sure that the DC DDAC is in touch with what's actually happening.
Totally. And it's a two-way street because the DDACs, they're also responsible
Yeah.
for making sure that people in their districts know about
Yeah.
all the DC DDAC initiatives, you
Or
know.
all the programs, the resources.
Yeah, anything that could benefit people with disabilities.
But they're not just implementers.
Right.
They're educators too.
They are.
Spreading the word, making sure people know what's available to them.
Well, exactly. And this is what I love. If they see a need for something new,
Yeah.
let's say a D-Days AC realizes like, oh, there's a gap in services here.
Right.
Or we need a program that's like specifically tailored to our district's unique challenges.
What can they do?
They can speak up.
Oh, wow.
They can make recommendations directly to the DC DD,
That's awesome.
suggesting new projects, new activities,
Oh,
even proposing new laws.
so they have a real voice.
They do. It's built-in empowerment.
Love that.
They're not just executors, they're active participants in shaping the disability landscape.
It's great.
It is. And to do all of this effectively, each DDAD maintains a detailed database of all the PWDs
Yeah.
and relevant organizations in their district.
Data.
It's all about the data.
So important.
They're not working off assumptions. They're using concrete information to guide their actions.
Love it.
And here's the kicker. The ordinance says that the DDAS,
Yeah.
they have to advocate for policies that align with the UN Convention
Oh, wow.
on the rights of persons with disabilities.
So they're connecting local action to global standards.
They're aiming to be leaders in disability rights.
That's amazing.
Okay, so Section 7,
Yeah.
it really fleshes out the role of those DDACs, right?
Yeah.
It shows how they're turning those high-level plans from the DC DAC
Right.
into tangible actions in their communities.
It's beautiful.
It is a beautifully designed system.
It is.
But there's one more layer we need to talk about.
Okay.
And that's how all of this connects to those PWD organizations themselves.
Right. The organization's formed by and for people with disabilities.
Exactly. This is where we see the power shifting to the people.
Yeah.
It's about empowering people with disabilities to take ownership of their rights
I like it.
and advocate for their own needs.
Okay, so how does the ordinance address that?
Well, Section 8 dives deep into how these organizations are structured
All right.
and how they fit into this whole system.
Okay, lay it on me.
All right, so it starts at the most local level,
Okay.
the barangay.
The barangays.
Have you heard of a barangay?
I have. I know it's like the smallest administrative division in the Philippines.
It is, yeah. It's like a neighborhood or a village.
Oh, okay, cool.
And the ordinance encourages people with disabilities within each barangay to form their own associations.
Awesome.
So it's all about like grassroots organizing.
Love it.
And they make it really easy to get started.
Oh, how so?
If you have at least 15 registered PWDs in a barangay,
Okay.
you can come together, create your own organization, elect your leaders, and bam, you're officially recognized.
That's great. So there's not a lot of red tape
No, not at all.
to get started.
But once a barangay level organization is formed,
Okay.
they do need to formally register
Mm-hmm.
with the PDAs,
Yes.
PDAODC.
Makes sense. They got to be on the radar
They do.
for support and accountability.
Exactly. And the DDAC for that district also gets a copy of all the information.
Okay.
Again, communication is key.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to be in a loop.
Right. It's all about building that network.
It is connecting those grassroots organizations
Yeah.
up to the district level and then to the city level.
Okay, cool.
Now, the ordinance also lays out some guidelines
Right.
for how these barangay level organizations should be structured.
Right. Makes sense.
So they need a president, vice president, secretary, treasurer.
Yeah, usual suspects.
Yeah, the usual suspects, just to make sure they have like a solid foundation.
Like this.
And then importantly, the rules for these barangay level organizations,
Yeah.
they have to align with the broader guidelines set by the PDAODC.
Okay, so there's consistency across the board.
There is, whether you're a small group in a barangay
Right.
or a large citywide organization.
Makes sense.
Everyone's playing by the same rules.
I like it. Okay, so that's the barangay level.
Yeah.
What about those other PWD-oriented organizations?
You mean the ones who are advocating for PWD rights?
Yeah.
It's like one of their key missions, but their membership might be more diverse.
Exactly. Like they might focus on accessible education or inclusive employment.
Right.
Or have a broader social justice focus.
Yeah, and these organizations, they play a crucial role in bridging the gap
They do.
between the disability community
You're right.
and the wider society.
Absolutely. They're raising awareness, advocating for change, creating more inclusive environments.
Totally. And Davao City wants to make sure these organizations are recognized and supported.
Of course. So how do they do that?
Well, the ordinance lays out a clear path for them to become officially accredited.
Okay.
So they go through a registration process with the PDAODC.
Mm-hmm.
They provide information about their mission, their activities, how they're working to advance disability rights.
So it's similar to the process for those barangay level organizations.
It is.
But it's tailored to these broader organizations.
Exactly. And just like before, that information is shared with the DC and the relevant DC.
Okay.
So everyone's in the loop.
Transparency and communication.
It's all about building that interconnected web of support.
I love it.
All right, now let's zoom out a bit
Okay.
and talk about those PWD organizations that operate at the city level.
All right. The big leagues.
Yeah, the big leagues organizations with members from multiple districts, representing the interests of people with disabilities across all of Davao City.
So I imagine their registration process is a bit more involved.
It is. It starts the same way they register with the PDAC, PDAODC.
Okay.
Provide all the necessary details.
Right.
But because they operate at the city level, the DC also gets involved
Oh, okay.
to make sure they're truly representative and aligned with the city's overall vision.
So they're accountable to the entire PWD community.
Exactly. The DAC has to concur with their registration.
Okay.
And then the final approval comes from the PDAC, PDAODC.
Makes sense. An extra layer of oversight for these citywide organizations.
Now, here's where things get really interesting. Davao City doesn't just recognize those strictly PWD organizations.
Okay.
They also acknowledge that there are organizations out there with like mixed memberships.
Right, like groups that might focus on other social issues,
Yeah.
but also have PWDs as part of their constituency.
Exactly. So you might have like an environmental group that also advocates for the inclusion of people with disabilities, or a women's rights organization that has specific programs for women with disabilities.
That's awesome.
It is. And the ordinance welcomes these organizations with open arms.
Really?
They can apply for accreditation with the PDAO DC.
Oh, wow.
Regardless of whether they're local, national,
wow.
or even international.
So it's about building this broad coalition of support.
It is. Davao City recognizes that this isn't just a niche issue.
Right.
It's something that intersects with all aspects of society.
Right, love that.
And just like with the other organizations, the D-Day gets the final say on who gets accredited.
Makes sense.
Ensuring alignment with the city's overall commitment to disability rights.
It's all connected.
It is. So we've seen how the ordinance provides a framework for all these different types of organizations to register, get accredited, and become active participants in shaping policies and programs.
It's a really multifaceted approach.
It is.
Recognizing the different ways people can contribute.
Yeah. Okay, but there's one last piece of this puzzle that I'm really curious about.
Okay, what's that?
That section on honorariums.
Oh, yeah.
Remember we talked about how council members might receive financial compensation for their work?
Right.
Section 9.
Okay.
And it seems like a small detail.
Yeah.
But it's actually really important.
Really is that?
Well, it's all about recognizing the value of lived experience and making sure that participation is accessible to everyone.
Oh,
Because these council members, they're dedicating their time, their energy, their expertise to this work. And for some individuals, particularly those from marginalized communities, the lack of financial compensation could be a real barrier to participation.
I hadn't thought about that.
You know, they might not be able to afford to take time off work
or
cover transportation costs to attend meetings.
It makes sense when you put it that way.
So by offering honorariums, the ordinance acknowledges that these individuals are providing a valuable service.
They are.
It's about recognizing their expertise and making sure that financial constraints don't prevent them from contributing.
That's really important.
It is now, of course, the ordinance is clear that these honorariums are subject to budget availability.
Right. It's not a blank check.
It's not a blank check.
Got to be responsible.
Exactly. And if honorariums are provided, the amount is determined by the city budget officer.
Okay.
Approved by the city mayor, following all the proper government procedures.
So it's a transparent and accountable system.
It is. No one's getting rich off of this. It's about providing support to those who might need it.
Yeah.
To participate fully.
It's really thoughtful.
It is. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. From the structure of the councils to the role of PWD organizations to those honorariums. It's clear that Davao City has put a lot of thought into creating this system for disability inclusion.
Very impressive.
It is.
I'm really curious to see how it all plays out in practice.
Me too. But there's one more section we need to explore.
Okay.
We've talked about the DAC at the city level, the DACs at the district level.
Right.
But how does all of this actually translate to the everyday lives of people with disabilities?
That's a good question.
In different neighborhoods.
Yeah. How does it all come together?
Well, that's what we're going to dive into.
Okay.
In the final part of our deep dive.
Can't wait.
All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Davao City's amazing approach to disability rights.
I know, it's been a fascinating journey.
It has, from the citywide DC DAC to those hyper-local DACs.
Yeah.
And all those incredible PWD organizations in between.
It's really impressive how much thought they put into this.
They have, but now let's bring it all home. You know, we've talked about the big picture, but how is this ordinance actually changing things on the ground?
Right. That's the real test, isn't it?
It is. And the answer, I think, lies in how those district disability affairs councils, the DDACs, are actually operating within their communities.
Yeah, they're the ones on the front lines, right?
They're translating those city-level policies into actual concrete action.
The boots on the ground.
They're the local champions for disability rights.
I love that.
And Section 7 of the ordinance, it doesn't just tell them to, go do good things.
Right.
It actually lays out their specific responsibilities.
Okay.
It's a pretty impressive list. So first and foremost,
Yeah.
they're the implementers.
Okay.
They take those programs and policies developed by the DC DAC, and they make sure they're actually happening in their districts.
So they're bridging that gap between the big ideas and what's actually happening in the neighborhoods.
It's about connecting those dots, making sure those services are reaching the people who need them.
Yeah, because a great program on paper doesn't mean much if it doesn't actually reach the people it's supposed to help.
Totally. And it's not just about implementation either.
Oh, really?
It's also about evaluation.
Okay.
Those DDACs are constantly monitoring how those programs are working.
So they're checking in. Are they effective? Are they meeting the needs?
Yeah, they're gathering feedback from the community. They're identifying any roadblocks or challenges, and they're finding ways to improve things.
So they're the eyes and ears on the ground.
They're providing that essential feedback loop to the DC type.
It's so important to have that feedback from the people who are actually experiencing those programs.
It's all about making sure those policies are responsive to the real-world needs of the community.
Absolutely.
But it's not just about, quietly working behind the scenes.
Oh.
The DDACs, they're also tasked with making sure people in their districts know about all the resources and opportunities that are available to them.
That's crucial.
It is.
Spreading the word.
Yeah, raising awareness, empowering people with disabilities to access those services.
Yeah.
And creating a more inclusive environment overall.
They're not just implementers and evaluators.
Yeah.
They're educators and advocates, too.
Exactly.
It's a big job.
It is. And what I love is if they see a need for something new, let's say a DDAC realizes, oh, there's a gap in services here.
Right.
Or we need a program that's specifically tailored to our district's unique challenges.
Okay, what happens then?
Well, they don't just sit back and wait for someone else to fix it.
Right.
They're empowered to take action.
Oh, wow. I like that.
They can make recommendations directly to the DC DACs.
That's awesome.
Suggesting new projects, activities, even proposing new laws.
So they have a real voice.
They do. They have a direct line to the city level, and they're encouraged to use their voices to advocate for change.
Love it.
And to do all of this effectively.
Okay.
Each DDAC has to maintain a database of all the PWDs and relevant organizations in their district.
Data.
It's all about the data.
Yeah, so important.
They're not working off assumptions.
Right.
They're using concrete information to guide their actions.
I love that.
And here's another really important thing.
Okay.
The ordinance charges the DDACs with advocating for policies that align with the UN Convention
Whoa.
on the rights of persons with disabilities.
So they're connecting their work
Yeah.
to those international standards.
They're not just focused on their own district. They're part of a global movement.
That's powerful.
They're aiming to be leaders in disability inclusion,
I love that.
setting an example for other cities around the world.
It's inspiring.
It is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what stands out to you about Davao City's approach?
I think for me, it's that level of detail and intentionality. This isn't just like lip service to disability inclusion.
Right.
It's a carefully crafted system designed to create real lasting change.
They really thought of everything.
They did.
From the structure to the data to the international standards.
And it's not just about government action either.
Right.
It's about empowering people with disabilities and their allies to be active participants in shaping their communities.
It's about collaboration.
Yeah.
Communication, a shared commitment to inclusion.
Exactly. It's a model for other cities to follow. And as we close, I want to leave you with a question to think about.
Okay.
How can we take what we've learned from Davao City and apply it to our own communities?
That's a great question.
What steps can we take to build those networks of support, to empower PWDs, and to create lasting change?
Davao City has shown us what's possible.
They have, when a community really commits to disability inclusion.
Let's be inspired by their example and keep the conversation going.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.